everybody is speaking about it because it's a concern up and down the length and breadth of the country, talking there about the, the impending protests against hardships in the land. So we indeed will be talking about that this morning. In fact, it will be our major subject. But one of our guests this morning is Mr. Terence Kouanum. Mr. Terence Kouanum, well, these days he's the special advisor to the Secretary to the Government of the Federation on Public Affairs. But, he's always been our friend, and he used to be our man in Benue State when he was fully engaged there. And so, upon the occasion of having him for this conversation, fine morning to you, Terence.
Good morning, Uncle Yori.
Good morning, sir. Thank you very much for making the time for us. I thought we'd quickly get out of the way. Apparently, there's been some sort of a crisis in Ukum, if that is the right way to pronounce it, in Ukum, back in your home state. And I just wanted to quickly touch base with you because the governor, speaking through his chief press secretary very recently, had said that he actually fingered and blamed politicians in Abuja for contributing to the crisis, even as a judicial commission of inquiry has been set up. So tell us quickly what that's all about. What crisis? When we talk about the crisis in Ukum, what exactly is that about?
Yeah, thank you very much for that, Uncle Yori. The crisis has been a perennial crisis that has been with us for some time, but the immediate past administration took some measures that was able to calm it down to a point that some our people were able to go back to their farms. So when the present governor was campaigning, he has given the militants that were pushed into the bush 100 days for them to be able to bring them out. And stabilize them reintegrate them into the society. But recently, I think after waiting for 1 year, there were some agitations from those militants, and then they began attacking our people. The governor himself, at the point, was there at the point, and then assured them that they should listen to him first before they are able to take actions against our people, so he wants that to stop. But recently, we saw an attack on a community, and when the community took the corpse to the local government chairman, and the local government chairman told them that he doesn't own a mortuary, so they should take the corpse to the mortuary out of anger. They started protesting, and it escalated to the point that all the properties the chief of staff to the governor has in his ancestral homes were burned down in that crisis. And so he set up a judicial panel, which is excellently good to find out the root causes of this problem. But the challenge we're having is that shortly after setting the judicial panel, you see the viral videos that are going out. They are also in your studio. You can see that the militants came out and openly took responsibility for those attacks. And the militants told the people the reason why they are attacking them, because of the failed agreement they had with His Excellency. That he has failed because he has won the election and is comfortable. So the people of Benue and the people of thief extraction in Taraba and Nasarawa are not going to rest until the governor do what they wanted. Yet, the governor is still blaming the Abuja politicians. Now you set up a judicial panel of inquiry into a crisis, and you're already pointing fingers at people. So how is the judicial panel going to give justice to people when you're already pointing accusing fingers at Abuja politicians? And who is the Abuja politician in Ukum? Is the senator representing Zone A. This same senator that had raised a motion of urgent national importance that his people were being killed, and you still went attacking him. And so we got confused what he exactly wanted to do to our people, because the militants are out threatening him and us. He's not taking actions to end that. He set up a judicial panel. He is also pointing accusing fingers at people. So in the midst of all this, we're not seeing where we are going to get justice.
I get you. Now, I think because, unfortunately, important as it is, somebody died, it's regrettable, but not many people might have heard about it.
People died, not one person. One person died. People lost their properties in millions. And so many other damages were caused in this crisis.
Did it involve our men in uniform? Did it involve soldiers in uniform, the crisis when it happened?
Yeah, the crisis, when it happened, there are security personnel on ground, but you know that these militants know the terrain, and so most times they strike where the military does not know, and so by the time they react, the damage has been done. And the governor went there through the deputy governor. Like I told you, his chief of staff right in his ancestral home. Where the chief of staff house was burnt is in the ancestral home where all his neighbors are his blood relations. So for you to know that people are angry to the point of burning down your house in your ancestral home, know that something is terribly wrong for even your people not to stand up and defend you.
Okay, I get you. Well, as you said, one probably shouldn't prejudice the situation any further if that is indeed what has been done. And by that, I mean that the Judicial Panel of Inquiry is yet to submit its findings, right? But it has been set up. So
no, they have not even sat, and the person that set up the Judicial Panel is already pointing accusing fingers. So how are we going to believe that they are going to give us justice? That is the challenge. The government has pointed accusing fingers on Abuja politicians. So how are they going to give justice to the people of Sankara? They won't be able to do that because the governor is already pointing accusing fingers. He's already a judge in the issue.
So that is I get your concern, and you've put that out now. As I said, well, your assignment these days is different because you've moved to Abuja, where you're working with the Secretary to the Government of the Federation. But thank you for filling us in on that for whoever wasn't aware of the matter. We'll return to it. I said at the beginning that it wasn't going to be, our main focus, because the main focus is this whole national issue, as important as the crisis in Ukum is. It wasn't going to be our main focus. The main focus is, of course, this August 1st protest that is coming up. Everybody has been saying that, it is indeed the rights of people to protest. But the concern that everybody, well, when I say everybody, there are those who don't see it like that, but they're certainly in the minority. Almost everybody seems to think that this might not end well, much as there is the right. But so many things have been done. For instance, I was reading in the dailies this morning that indeed the police have been ordered to provide security for the protesters, should they want to go ahead with the protest. Even though efforts are still continuing to persuade them against the idea. But nevertheless, the authorities have ordered the police to, provide security for them. But there have been these constant warnings that the state is not going to sit on its, hands, so to speak. If anything was to begin to show signs of it going south, the most important thing is integrity, the integrity of the country, the peace, and the security. And just about everybody, especially the police, the presidency, as the president has been saying that it is your right, but please, there's no reason for it anymore. The Minister of Information put out yesterday that so many things are being done. And from the point of view of the Federal Executive Council yesterday, there is no further need for this protest. But that is not to, that is without prejudice to the right of every Nigerian, a constitutional right, to gather and protest. So you can see there's this interesting play. On the one hand, people are saying that we cannot deny the constitutional provision, but on the other hand, you also have to be aware that we have the responsibility for maintaining the peace. And in this concern, let me bring in Ambassador Elijah Onyeagba. He's our former ambassador to Burundi. He's also joining us from our Abuja studio. So, Mr. Ambassador, good morning to you, sir, and thank you for making the time for us.
A very good morning to you, Uncle Yuri. It's my pleasure being in your studio once again.
Thank you very much, sir. Now, would you like to weigh in on the matter? The people who want to protest, we've heard all sorts of reasons why they shouldn't protest, and not least of which was that it's something of a faceless protest. We don't know who are the leaders, who are the people who are to take responsibility. Well, some people have been speaking, and that leads to what I was saying earlier, that it might be a concession that government is now saying, okay, fine, let's move on with it. But would you speak to the point that was made yesterday by the Minister of Information, that there is no more need for this protest to go on as is being planned. And so they backed that statement up with an appeal for the protesters, those organizing the protest, to reconsider. Your take, sir.
Thank you very much. At first, I'd like to say that I have been very impressed with the way government have been trying to engage all stakeholders in this process. Yes, we are not arguing the fact that, protests is enshrined, peaceful protest is enshrined in our Constitution. The provisions of our Constitution allows anyone who wants to go out there and express their feelings and how they feel, the Constitution, allows that. But history is a very good way of making projections into the future. And to that extent, I think that it's important for Nigerians to look at history and then, on the basis of what had always happened in the past, make projection in terms of what needs to be done. Yes, there's no argument about the fact that people are hungry. I agree. Yes, there's no argument about the fact that quite a lot of people are complaining about the high cost of living in the country. There's no argument. Nobody will argue that. But the question is, what is the way out? Because sometimes it's important to understand the root cause of issues. And it's important that we also separate politics from governance. Sometimes what you find is that, people carry political agitation, or people carry dissatisfaction that they have obtained from the political exercise, and then they actually bring it into governance-related issues. And I ask the question, for those that are, following the protest on a political ground, I mean, if your candidate won the elections, for example, what would have changed? Would there have been a magic wand somewhere that someone would just wave and all of a sudden things will start, the hardship will end? If even who you wanted to be president is president today, is there any magic that the person has that they can actually do, and then cost of living will suddenly drop, and all of these issues? And, so to that extent, I think it's important for the people of this country, the leaders and the led as well, alike, to sit down and find a way forward. This is the time to build a country, and I believe that government is also walking in the right direction. Look at the engagement, with political leaders, with religious leaders, with community leaders, with civil society, just trying to explain what government is doing. And on the political front, for example, the government have actually gone as far as ensuring that there is autonomy for the local government, meaning that, power should be taken down to the people at the grassroots level, which is actually the first point where we feel this pinch, okay? So that is what I think that is good for the people to know what government is doing. There has been quite a lot of conversation around, I have even been in this your studio discussing minimum wage, what should it be, what should government do? With all the arguments, Labour has been carried along. Labour is happy. Labour has agreed. Federal government have sent a proposal to the National Assembly. National Assembly has okayed it and returned it to the President. The President has signed it into law. Exactly. So that some of these challenges we are having will begin to reflect by way of what workers take home. And the most important thing is that it's not just civil servants, it's also workers at every level, both those in the private sector alike. So I believe that there is already something that the government is doing. And now the question is always the fact that what if we cannot control it? Because it's one thing to say you want to protest, but that is you saying you want to protest. You have no idea what is the intention of the next person standing next to you. And 2020, it was just less than 4 years ago, we had a similar protest in NSAS. It was people that are honestly protesting against the police brutalization at the time. Was there a reason for that? Yes. But the question is, we saw how it ended. Young people died. People were injured. Public and social infrastructure were destroyed. So it's okay to say this is what you want to do, but far much more important is also to understand that you do not have control of the next person close to you. Because as much as your intentions may be pure, what about the intention of the other person that is coming? What about the fact that we can actually you can lose control, and then develop a monster that you can no longer control? Look at what is going on in several parts of the country. It's, if I take the Southeast where I come from, it was basically people saying, oh, we are marginalized. Oh, we are not treated appropriately. What do we do about that and all of that? And all of a sudden, we now have multiple, we now have years where on Mondays, businesses no longer go on. People shoot at people, people kidnap people on the strength of the fact that, relying on the fact that there is agitation of one agitation. I mean, what kind of agitation should get you to a point where you're killing your fellow brothers? What kind of agitation should get you to a point where you kidnap people and ask for ransom? So the point is, if we have an idea of what has happened in the past, then it makes it easier for us to come together and agree on what is the best way forward. Labour did protest, government engaged Labour, and they found a solution. So anybody that wants to protest, irrespective of your intention, yes, the Constitution allows you to do that, but also know that there may also be unintended consequences that can come up as a result of that. So that's why it's always very easy to ask people to sit back and find a way to balance. And government, as far as I'm concerned, is open and is willing to negotiate. So why can't we continue with the dialogue?
Okay.
Thank you.
Indeed. Terence, let me come to you on that, the point that the ambassador made there, that it's one thing for you to plan a peaceful protest, but surely, just as the ambassador was saying, we have history to guide us. The great concern is that action, that peaceful protest action as planned, could be infiltrated by, quite frankly, let's just say ne'er-do-wells. But beyond that, there are even those who are fearing political motives. So we've heard from the protesters, those who say that they're not necessarily the, did they say they're not, how did they put it delicately? They're not the leaders, but they are the organizers. But whoever, nobody can actually guarantee that it will go as planned. Now, sitting where you do sit, as a special advisor to the secretary to the government of the Federation, I imagine that there will be a lot of goings and comings that you will be privy to. Government has actually done quite a bit before even engaging, sitting across a table. They've done a fair bit of work. This is without, any sort of negotiations with people. Are you hopeful that we can actually get people to see it differently from the way they were, proceeding on? Because it seems to me that they seem to think that we must protest. We have this right to protest. And people are saying, nobody's contesting that right. But the other point is, can you guarantee? You can guarantee yourself. Can you guarantee the 700th man, if it was a 700-strong team, can you guarantee every one of those people? I guess this is the problem. How does it seem from your end of the spectrum?
Thank you very much, Uncle Yori. The issue of this protest is quite an amazing situation because this is a government that have come in and have made so much efforts for the citizens to be able to stabilize. And in 2023, when all the three frontliners were campaigning, all of them promised to take the decisions that this government has taken. Subsidy was removed, and you and I know that when the subsidy was removed, the major challenge was the issue of transportation of workers and citizens of this country. Mm-hmm. We know the stage that the CMG plants in Lagos, Abuja, and the major cities. We know the stage that they are. We know that most of the buses have arrived Abuja, have arrived Lagos. All these things are being put in place so that by the time these things are launched, most Nigerians won't feel the impact of the transportation issue. We saw what the president did during this farming season. You saw the fertilizer that has been distributed to Nigerians, free of charge to all Nigerians. 60 trucks were sent to every state of the Federation, outside what the subnationals were doing. And because most of these palliatives were being sent to the subnationals, and there were a lot of issues coming up that they were not reaching the grassroots, the president himself, through the Attorney General, took this issue of autonomy to the Supreme Court, and he got the judgment. The National Assembly are almost through with amending some of the acts so that this autonomy will be sustained, and people at the grassroots will have to be accountable to the leadership. And everything is going in place. All of a sudden, we started seeing threats that people want to go out and protest. In the midst of people giving threats,
in fact, there have been some early
protest,
we
still have groups that are coming up. We still have groups that are coming up to do solidarity marches for Mr. President as well. And most of the issues that we are having today, we are investigating and finding out that they are coming through sabotage. Because, Uncle Yuri, if we go to the cold north where the farmers are, we know how much the price of sorghum, the price of millet, the price of maize is being sold today. We know how much a bag of Irish potatoes is being sold today in Jos. But when it gets to the cities, we see sabotages of the prices still soaring up. You and I know that the price of diesel in this country got to 1,008, 1,900. How much are they buying today? The people that were offering services courtesy of this diesel, now that the diesel have dropped, have they dropped their services because the diesel have dropped? So most of the sabotage is coming even from the citizens ourselves. But we are refusing to take a holistic look at the situation that is happening. The efforts that the president is making, the sabotage that is coming with, so that the system will not work, so that he will be discredited, and all of this put together is quite an unfortunate situation that instead of coming together and to be patriotic so that we'll move our country forward, all efforts that are being made by government are met with sabotage. And then people want to join the bandwagon. As we speak today, we have not recovered from the NSAS protest of 2020 in this country. Most of the damages that. And then we are talking of another protest, and we are talking of another, not just another protest, a faceless protest, where people who are coming out to show their faces are residing abroad. They are not even here in the country with us. And
you're
so
very right.
Those of us that are being mobilized to go to the street are going to the street to destroy a nation that is being rebuilt after we even destroyed it ourselves. Then people are motivating us from abroad to come and destroy a country. They don't even know when they are going to come back to this country. So it's an unfortunate situation. We appeal that people should look at what Mr. President is doing, because he's doing so much day and night, trying to make sure that Nigerians does not go into dire pains because of these policies that are going to cushion most of the challenges we've been having for a very long time. And when we are able to sustain these policies,
Terence,
most of us are going to rest because...
I do have a call. I beg your pardon for interrupting you, Terence, but I do have a call. Miriam in Abuja has called in. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I'm listening to your program going on presently. You people are talking, the federal government is really doing what the federal government is doing. We really appreciate it. They are talking about food. What of the petrol? What is bothering the poor man is the petrol. The petrol price is very, very high. The federal government should do something about the petrol. Let the price of the petrol come down. That's the most important thing. They are talking about palliative, distributing food. Me, I'm in Abuja. I've not seen one grain of corn or even beef, not to talk of rice. We are only hearing distribution here and there, but it has not gotten to us, and we are in Abuja.
Well, yeah. Without prejudice to what you're saying, you know, even the government itself has said that this is just like a first step. It is no way, there's no way that they're saying that this is an adequate measure. And so those truckloads, I think 10 extra truckloads to every state in the country, are meant for the poorest of the poor. And it doesn't strike me that you are among those numbers. So that might explain when you say that we haven't seen it. But the point you make is an important one. Even if you are not in the lineup or queue for it, if you had seen it, you would have said that you have seen it. So maybe all of these things, you know, will be sorted out in due course, but we don't have the time. Now, Mr. Ambassador, let me come back to you. A lot of similarities are being seen by those on that side of the conversation that, yeah, look what happened in Kenya. It happened in Kenya, and this is what Nigerians are also going to do. Can Nigeria really be led by the situation in Kenya? The point has been made that Nigeria and Kenya, you know, they're both, you know, brother countries in Africa, but they're not the same. And it doesn't work out like that. People, perhaps some of them, are looking admiringly, in the youth, are looking admiringly at what has happened in Kenya. Give me your commentary on that, Mr. Ambassador, the differences between the Kenyan situation and the Kenyan protests and what it might be if our people were to indeed go that way, which we are hoping that they won't.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Uncle Yuri. First, let me say that with respect to the lady that just spoke on the phone a few moments ago, it's important to understand that Nigerians understand that federal government only have 52%. 52% of federal allocation, and this is very important for people to know. 52% of federal allocations go to federal government. 26% of federal allocation is shared among the subnationals, and about 20% is also shared amongst the local governments within the same country. But, you know, we run a system where everybody is only concerned about what the federal government is doing with their own share of the allocations. Everybody is talking about the fact that, no, federal government is not doing this, federal government is not doing that. And little or no attention is paid at the local government and at the state level. And that's where I believe that the president is trying to drive our attention to get to that point, where people begin to take responsibility. And for every economic decision you take, any decision you take today will take some time before that decision, the impact of that decision reflects in the market. Yes, I understand that petroleum is very high. There's no doubt about that. We must admit that because that's the reality. I'm not buying cheaper than you are buying. You are not buying cheaper than every other person is buying. The truth is that petroleum cost is high. But the issue is, and then, what is government's response? So the point for me is, if government is not doing enough, then we can begin to engage and remind government of what extra that they need to do. Yesterday, you know that the Federal Executive Council passed a resolution that local refineries, including that of Dangote, should actually get crude oil at a pegged in Naira, number one, and then at a fixed rate. The idea behind all of these policies is to ensure that we now begin to refine these products locally within the country so that it will have an impact on the price of local products in the country. So if government is not doing anything, then
that has actually been described as a masterstroke by the president. I mean, it's a totally different
absolutely.
idea. So the details have to be worked out still, because the problem with that is that
it will be worked out. But what is important, Uncle Yuri? Yes, what is important at this point is that there is something that the government is doing in line to ensure that we are sustainable, in line to ensure that the prices of these petroleum products come down. So that is a step in the right direction. Now, I think it's important that Nigerians also, let's pressure the people that needs to be pressured. The subnationals needs to do something. I hear people complain about the fact that what federal government sends is not enough. But I'm just saying they only receive 52% of the national cake. What are the governors doing about what is supposed to happen? What are the local governments as well? So now driving it back to Kenya, I think what happened in Kenya is a very good example. Because sometimes most of these things have their political, their political motives behind that. Yes, we knew how the elections went between Raila Odinga and President Ruto. Somebody obviously won. But the question is, even if you come today to protest, our own elections in Nigeria was a very peculiar one. For the very first time in our history, in our political history, we had an election that was a three-horse race. It has never happened before. What we've always witnessed in Nigeria is a two-horse race election. So as a matter of fact, it just meant that one person will win at the end of the day. So the question is, if the reason for, for you to come out to protest is on political issues, don't forget that every other person, every other bloc also have people that are supporting them. But the truth of the matter is that a right-thinking government will look at our history, will look at what is also happening around and about. I mean, before even the Kenyan one, if you cast your mind back to 2010, 2011, where we also had the Arab uprising, started from Egypt, somebody setting himself ablaze, and all of a sudden it led to a protest that eventually ensured that public infrastructures are destroyed. We saw that in Kenya. And actually they are coming back again to sit back and count their losses. There were people in Kenya, there were patriots in Kenya that were warning that this is not the right thing to do. They went ahead and did it. Now, the monies that they would have used in even providing palliative or ensuring that prices of goods come down will now be used to rebuild those social and infrastructure, those infrastructure that the government have. So it's like, cast your mind back the days when we were in the university, where, maybe school fees has been increased, students will go on rampage, destroy the VC's office, destroy the registrar's office, the school will be shut down, everybody goes home, and then they sit down and they call in quantity surveyors to come and look at the cost. They calculate everything the students have destroyed. They will come back again and, bill you again. So you have lost time. You will come back and pay for what you have destroyed, and then who is losing at the end of the day? So to the extent that people that are organizing the protests are sure that they can control what they want to do, that is fine. And that's why I believe government is saying, who are you? Or who come out openly? Let's know who is protesting. We will give you that level of protection.
It's probably
but if
also
anything goes bad, let's also know who will hold responsible.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it probably also is remarkable that government has said that, has directed the police to provide protection, security for, those who indeed insist.
Yes.
Even though they strongly advise against it, but whoever insists, again, government has asked for the police to, ensure that they have their protection as well. So a lot of things, there are a lot of moving parts in this whole scenario here. Miriam called in, was telling about the toughness of the situation. Everybody knows that it is a tough situation.